right, so we're gonna start the panel on the workforce development. This is in the context of quantum. Well, I think we are I'm very fortunate to have the experts here with us today. We have Dr. Brian Cour from University of Texas, Austin. He's a senior researcher. We also have Dr. Alexei Sokolov. He is from Texas A&M here as a host. We also have Dr. Liwen Shih from University of Houston at Clear Lake. And we also have Michael. Michael, I want to pronounce your last name correct.
Keough.
Keough. Yeah. Michael Keough. Michael is a CIO for Region 16 Education Services. And we also have Sergio Cantú, Dr. Sergio Cantú, Vice President of Keough Computing. I think with amazing panelists over here, hopefully we have a very good discussion and learn from them. What I'm going to do is I will potentially start asking a few questions, and as each one of you answer the first question, say a few more words about yourself. I don't believe my introduction do a fair justice of your amazing background, so do say a few words about yourself as I answer the first question. So. So I want to start with the topic about talents, and this is really in the context of education or skill development versus industry demand. We have heard about the potential of quantum computing, but there is a big talent gap. We have seen research from McKinsey, from Boston Consulting Group about the talent shortages. What do you think are the main barriers to build a quantum-ready workforce? And how can we address them, both in education and within the industry? Michael, you are closest to me. Please, would you like to elaborate on this question? But every other panelist, please feel free to chime in after Michael.
Did you mean Michael or did you mean me?
Yeah, Michael, I'm sorry.
Sure, I'd love to talk a little bit from the education standpoint for sure. So the quantum business is basically, I think McKinsey said last year, it was a $4 billion industry. By 2035, it'll be a $97 billion industry. So clearly, there is a massive growth coming in the next several years. I love what the late Dr. Stephen Hawking said about passion. So he said science is not only just a discipline, but it's also of passion and romance. And so I thought that's an elegant way of saying the way that we approach science, specifically in community, needs to instill passion specifically in youth. So that's some of the work that we're doing, is trying to work in building some passion in even the younger grades. Thinking about a 10-year-old. How can a 10-year-old be involved in quantum science? And why would we want a 10-year-old involved in any form of quantum science? Well, I'll refer to Bell Helicopter. Bell Helicopter is targeting their newest helicopter to be delivered in about 30 years, and fifth graders are the workforce for that helicopter. So they're spending an exorbitant amount of money working with fifth graders to make sure that they have a passion and they foster inquiry on how to build this helicopter coming in 30 years. So with that said, I think we have a bit of a marketing problem. There's brilliant minds in this room, brilliant minds at this table, and they're doing incredible advances. I've seen over the last 2 or 3 days the incredible things happening in quantum physics. Where we're missing it is definitely in K through 12, but even in early areas of advanced education. So if we can get students interested in those concepts. I have a niece that I can do a double slit experiment with, and I can have a conversation about Schrodinger's cat. She's still upset that the cat was put in the box in the first place, but that's a whole other conversation. you can have these conversations at a lower level to work it out, and we do that with other sciences. Why not quantum? It's in the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills for a 12th grader to actually learn linear algebra and quantum, but most of the time they don't get to it. So by the time we get to college, or by the time we get to our graduate studies, is that the first time that they're really thinking about passion for quantum? The last thing, I'll let the other panelists discuss more, but public-private partnerships are critical. We've been working closely with IonQ, a company called Duos Edge AI, and a company called Fiberlight to build a real quantum network that is accessible to K through 12 and local government in the panhandle of Texas. But that wouldn't be possible if I didn't have significant conversations with IonQ over the last literally 2 years, trying to figure out how to make this happen, and then speaking with educational partners to say, how do we actually teach this in K through 12? How do we take something that's not a formal study or something that's a formal focus for school districts across Texas and integrate it natively into the curriculum?
Michael, thank you. Really, thank you for that insight. Because we talk about both from the education perspective point of view, but also there's the industry perspective. Sergio, you are from Keough era, right? You are the one, I think, quote unquote, on the industry side, hopefully. Would you like to share your perspective?
Yes, happy to do so. So my name is Sergio Cantú. I'm the Vice President of Quantum Systems at Cour. And I'm in charge of the architecture design as well as a lot of the engineering communication to make sure that, as we break down these very complex machines, to make sure that we contextualize each piece to the right context for the right team that we have, right? Software, optics, hardware. And to me, this process of breaking down the machine and break down the complexity into who can go deep and take a particular piece and really run with it is how I see that as far as workforce development goes. It really comes down to noticing that, the first challenge that we need to go, and I agree with what Michael said earlier, is quantum has a marketing problem because people don't know what quantum is, don't know what these computers are for. And if we can make sure that people, as they educate themselves through their careers, realize that quantum is very close to them, that they experience it every day, one, but also that the particular challenges that they solve within this particular engineering field, let it be computer science or optics, or the more than they can have some breadth of knowledge. Make sure that the curricula that they study incorporates into them some module or some quantum piece that they can be aware of, that all of this that I'm studying is already being applied to in the in the quantum computing community. I think that will bridge the gap a lot, because something that happened in the beginning for us was, as we started hiring engineers, we realized that we had an issue of almost translation. We would say trap depth, they wouldn't say brightness or intensity, right? Like translating concepts from physics to engineering fields. The more that they have context of what they're working with, really helps bridge that gap. So I think that in terms of how we hire, the more that we do a better job at breaking down the machine so that engineers can contribute immediately. But on the educational side, the more that they can contextualize what they're studying and realize that already what they work with has impact in the industry already, I think that would make them, I think, more excited to make sure that, hey, quantum is also one here, that we're like slowly building that community and that industry. And they see it also as not just some mysterious box that is somewhere out there, but that they actually can contribute through their engineering pipeline in some deep technical knowledge that they already have.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thanks to both of you. So one of the things I think at least I learned as I started my programming career, right? I mentioned early on, the programming I started when I was in the college was a Fortran. At that time, I can recall, for some of the simple programming we are doing, if I know algebra, maybe algebra 2, I can survive with many of the programming tasks. But as soon as we started programming quantum, I started realizing that how extensive the knowledge you would need to acquire in order to be a really good programmer. So I hope the panelists will share some of the insights. When we thinking about our students, for them to be really knowing what they're doing, they have to know, I would say, for good, the quantum physics, Schrödinger equations, you understand some of the waveforms, how they works, how the quantum states are defined. So physics is the first. Then you talk about linear algebra, because many of the operations are real linear algebra operations. If you don't know the matrix operations, forget about it, right? And third piece is there are quantum information theories. You need to know how they work. So then you have to translate those into some of the programming languages, like whatever that language is. So it's a fairly end-to-end pipeline a student has to acquire. So I would hope, Liwen, you could help us understand, given that depth, given that extensive requirement, Michael also talked about this as well, the skill set. How can we help students to acquire reasonable skills without losing the depth?
Okay, so the first computer freed the world. The revolution was to free us from having to do hand-long division. So you just say divide, right? But then the quantum is gonna free us from having to do all the trial and error tricking, right? So now, what do we have to train the quantum developer and quantum user with, right? So that is the next thing. Now, it requires all different type of talents, and so we're talking about interdiscipline. So I think Rice University is a very good example. They have a design kitchen, which is built a multi-discipline lab where you have different individual workstations, and then all the different major in physics and mechanics and computer in all different area. They are all in the same open room, just like this room. And the reason it's called kitchen, I think it was a cafeteria before, so yeah. And so that's a great opportunity for everybody. So in all my classes, I'm basically trying to teach the curriculum. Instead of curriculum-based, I do project-based, right? So my son and my daughter, I send them to Spanish immersion school so they can learn Spanish, besides English and Chinese. So for example, just in the kindergarten, their course is like, this week is frog. So there's no biology, there's no art, so everything about frog, right? But inside the different discipline, then you can divide it up to all the different area. So in the large language model, now we are boiled down to how do you make a prompt? So in the quantum is how you define the constraint, define the solutions, right? So 1981 November night, I didn't sleep because I have assignment due next day. And I was able to prove when the sun came up, the 5 coloring problem. Now 40 years later, or 30, 40 years later, the first problem that I learned about the quantum optimization was the map coloring problem of the Canadian. So I was like, oh, okay, why did I have to learn that 30 years ago? Okay, so we don't really know what it is, but in the talent gap part, we really have some problem with quantum, because Einstein has a big problem, right? Because he's overtrained in classical mechanics, so he has hard time accepting, so he was taking it as spooky or whatever. And then immediately give everybody say, oh, that's a real thing, right? So that is a not very good positive effect on that, right? So, and then we are discussing about the AI winter, the quantum winter. So for a student now, they are thinking, okay, should I go for a quantum job or should I go for NVIDIA or GPU or cloud or cybersecurity job? They will tend to try to go to a more safer job, right? So then we have a problem. We do have very good students, but if we don't have good workforce, so earlier this morning they were talking about globally we will need 840,000 people in quantum. Now, if the whole world is about 100 trillion GDP, and then Texas is about like 3%, then we need about 25,000 next 10 years, okay? So can we all produce 25,000 quantum people the next 10 years? So we have to think about that, right? And so global, US GDP is about 1/3 of the global, about 30 trillion out of the 100 trillion. So we have to think about how we're gonna achieve that. Now, right now, NVIDIA is established the quantum center in Boston, right? Not in Austin or Houston, right? Okay. So we have to really, and my best student that did the 3D Sudoku, 25 cube in the poster, he's now working for Berkeley Lab. So we lose him out to California already, right? That one student. Okay, so how can we keep the talents here? And how can we attract the business here? And then how do we prepare? Our student will be able to formulate the question, the constraints, right? And to be able to help us keep the workforce and the development and prosperous in Texas.
Thank you, Liwen. Thank you, Liwen. I'm going to switch the topic a little bit from the technical and also the skill set. What resonated in my mind was that if you think about the current active conversations on the generative AI front, in addition to every day you saw the new AI model pop up, there are benchmarks, there are rankings of which model performs the best, right? Hugging Face, I'm sure many of you go there, if not every day, maybe every week. I think along those conversations, active conversations, there's an equally large, if not larger, conversation about the ethics of AI, of generative AI. How can we make AI transparent? How can we make AI explainable? How can we make AI accessible to the citizens or the residents of the state and also the nation? I think that's an equally big topic. So taking that and apply that to the quantum space, because quantum is still relatively new. And I want to pose this open question. Really, it's an open question. If we already have a solution, we wouldn't be here. So it's really an open question. Is what are the key considerations or the thoughts if you could give some, maybe this time it's you, Brian, give some thoughts, some hints, or some pointers where we may want to think about to manage the ethics aspect of quantum.
All right, well, first let me give a little bit of context. As a researcher and an educator, I kind of wear two hats at the moment, where half of my time is as a researcher in quantum photonics and in quantum-inspired algorithms, and the other part of my life is in quantum education. I've been in quantum education since about 2018, when we started a freshman course in quantum computing. It's the first year-long course where students start with virtually no knowledge of quantum or the usual mathematical requisites. That now I've seen students transition from that program into graduate programs and into the quantum industry itself. I've also developed a high school program. In 2019, we piloted a high school program, it's a full year course in quantum computing that was at a local high school in the Austin Independent School District. It was about 60% economically disadvantaged, about 80% Hispanic. And we were talking earlier about like marketing and getting students interested in quantum. Over a 2-year pilot, I had about 130 students that enrolled in that pilot. The students are there, and they're very interested if we give them the opportunities. We also have, in 2020, we started a quantum information science certificate program for undergraduates at UT, and we've had around at least 16 students who've graduated with that program. So I've seen a lot of students go through this, and I've worked with a lot of educators on how to deal with this problem and how to teach quantum. So let me speak specifically on the question that was asked regarding ethics. There's really two aspects of this question when we talk about ethics in quantum. There's the ethics of using quantum technology, and there's the ethics of who is using or who is involved in quantum technology. So, and I'm going to relate this to the education side of things. When we talk about the ethics of quantum technology, you know, a lot of the things we talk about when we introduce quantum is we'll say, oh, well, you can use Shor's algorithm to break RSA encryption, right? And if you're, you know, a member of the DoD, IC, that's pretty important and that sounds scary. If I'm an 8th grader, maybe I'm asking, why does somebody want to steal my secrets? Fear can be a very powerful motivator, but for young people, it isn't necessarily the best motivator. So when we talk about the uses of quantum technology in the context of education and workforce development, we might want to think about what are the benefits that quantum technology is going to derive. What are the things that are going to make the world a better place, rather than avoiding, you know, bad things that might happen in the future. We also talk a lot about competition and how, well, you know, Texas has got to beat out, you know, California and Colorado and whatever, or the U.S. has got to beat out China. But if you look around at the industry, you look around this room, you see people from everywhere, all across the nation, all across the world, that are involved in this. And anyone who's done research in quantum knows that this is a very collaborative international endeavor. And so I think contextualizing it as a collaborative effort is maybe more important, again, for motivating young people than as a competition. The other aspect of ethics is who participates. So one of the motivations that I had for working with this particular high school is that I didn't want to go to the best science magnet school in Austin and work with them because I knew they were already going to be going into some kind of STEM field. I'm not worried about them. But I'm worried about the folks that maybe aren't even thinking about that as a career. And so if we really do want to develop a workforce in Texas, around the world, that is quantum ready, we need to bring in everybody. And that means we need to have a diverse workforce, we need to have an equitable approach to that, and it needs to be inclusive of everyone. So I think that this is where we really need to put our focus, make sure that as we are training up people for this workforce, that everyone is able to participate. Okay.
Brilliant. So diverse workforce, right? Looking at the benefit, not driven by the fears, because fears doesn't really do much benefit. And looking at the competitive nature and, you know, keep driving. Fabulous, fabulous. The next question may sound a little bit a question from a Department of Labor or Department of Statistics, but I think maybe it's a question we should pose as well. I think through this conference, we have learned a lot what are the critical scientific skills that will be critical for continue advancing quantum computing as a whole. Because we talk about the jobs, so we try to look at the crystal ball, try to predict what kind of jobs we will be needing, either in banking, you know, natural resources, energy, and etc. I don't think, or at least me, I don't think we know everything yet. And also, even more challenging is what kind of skill set will be most critical to target those job sets. So we are dealing with the unknowns. So Alex, I would hope you can give us some hint on that front. Maybe if you have a stock, we should buy your stock as well ahead of time.
Yeah, and advice on the unknown, the jobs that we haven't even imagined yet.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or
I think
crystal ball, perhaps.
Huh?
Or a crystal ball, perhaps.
Yeah. I think this question dovetails very nicely to what my colleagues were already saying, and I find it to be a very general philosophical kind of a question. I have 3 girls in college right now. No one is in quantum physics, psychology, finance and business, and biochemistry. But I find myself thinking about the same thing when they ask for advice, if they do. How do you prepare yourself for what's going to happen 10 years from now? We don't know. In the quantum realm, this question is much more pressing. We've been hearing these 2 days about the exponential growth, right? Everything is accelerating. Well, our whole society is accelerating, but the quantum technologies are on a double exponential, right? You all realize that. We heard this morning that the computing power is doubling every 2 years, and then a couple years from now it will be doubling every few months. And by the year, 2030 something, it will be doubling every 2 minutes. That's what Philip told us this morning. What's going to happen to us and our children, and what kind of jobs will they have at that time? I don't know. Anyone who has an answer is welcome to chime in. But I'd like to tell you how we here at Texas A&M are pushing these ideas of workforce development from the general undergraduate population, obviously starting at the graduate school level. That's what we are used to. Then undergraduates, we are now teaching, and when I say we, it's Suhail Zuberi, our leader in that dimension. He is teaching quantum physics to freshmen as an elective, and he has students from all over this large campus participate in his class. And starting 4 years ago, we've been teaching quantum physics again with Zuberi and Scully leadership, teaching quantum physics at the summer quantum camp to high school students. Basic concepts. Zuberi gives a sequence of 10 lectures on everything, starting from the uncertainty and quantum computing and cryptography, and then students do lab experiments in small groups combined with graduate students, and high school teachers participate in all of this. Through these 4 years, we've had over 100 high schoolers from all over the country, all states, from left coast to right coast and everywhere in between. And we had a couple dozen teachers participate. And teachers learn this quantum physics together with students, but they also observe how the students learn and how they face these challenging topics. And then they take this to their classrooms, back to where they came from, and adjust their lessons plans and such. And that creates a multiplicative effect. So I think we need to be going in all these possible directions. And students leave from these freshman classes and from these high school summer schools with a sense of awe, and we need to inspire that so that they are not limiting the ideas about their future, but rather cultivate their sense of curiosity and try to be broad in what they learn.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you. I think that hint, at least the direction, is very helpful for us, because this is really the big open question. What I'd like to do is, I'd like really to give enough time for the audience. If you have any questions, I would like to open it up. It doesn't mean we have more questions over here. We have questions over here as well. So please, audience, your thoughts, reactions, doesn't have to be questions, reactions, questions, please. Yes.
Vlad Yakovlev, Texas A&M. So it's all great ideas. Okay, also seriously, okay, also I love the idea of teaching quantum, okay, also as early as it possible. Well, so I came from math school, okay, also where we learned quantum, okay, also in 10th grade or something, okay, also. But see, let's look at reality, okay, also. Many students who are entering college is suffering from the lack of simple algebra. So, and see, one of the prerequisites that I saw on UT Dallas slide is linear algebra, okay, also, which is several levels up from a simple algebra. So how do we deal with that?
I might start with that, and I'll let my colleagues continue that. But there is a challenge with public education. I don't think we're advanced. And you look at other countries like South Korea, look at Singapore, and you have kids in 6th grade programming large language models. They're studying deeper elements of physics. Now, you do have situations like in Europe, and I think the student was 14, and I think in the United States, I can't remember the student's name, developed a fusion reactor in their basement, which is not the best plan, but they did it. And so are they capable? Yes. And I think one of the challenges sometimes we face in education is we underestimate student capabilities. There should be more rigor, and there should be some more expectations. And there is some of that happening, but it's not enough. And so part of what I would say education agencies like ours, but also even down to the grassroots teacher level, there's going to have to be a shift in our pedagogy and how we view education and how we view advancing students, especially with what Dr. Sokolov said with the like Moore's law, with the speed at which compute is changing and the changing in jobs. I think we have to hit that from a grassroots, but that also means a very strong partnership between education institutions at a primary level as well as your secondary levels.
Any other thought? Please, Brian.
Within the field of quantum education, which is kind of a thing now, there's this concept of the broccoli first approach to teaching quantum computing. And the idea is that you teach the students all the math and the linear algebra, take your broccoli first, and then you learn about computing and algorithms and all of that. My experience has been that's not the best way to do it, and that's part of the fear and concern, I think, of introducing quantum computing is that we do tend to think of it from a very math-heavy, linear algebra-heavy perspective. It's not the approach that I use when I do this at either the freshman level or at the high school level. We started a physics-based first approach, so they get their dessert first, and we talk about how to understand basic qubit concepts in terms of things that are familiar to them, like the polarization of a transverse wave. And then we introduce the math sort of on a just-in-time basis as needed with no more complexity than is needed. One of the nice things about quantum computing is that we've learned enough about quantum computing to kind of go back to the beginning. So the beginning of quantum computing was actually Heisenberg's matrix mechanics. And then Schrödinger came along and changed all the differential equations, and everyone loved those. And that's how we do it now at the undergraduate level. That's not really the great way to do it. So quantum information, you can do, 2x2 matrices. You don't really even need to use complex numbers, and sometimes people throw darts at me for this, but really you can get a lot of mileage with just real numbers. So you can teach the basics. And really dive into the most interesting aspects of quantum without going through a lot of the headaches and heartache of some of the more sophisticated mathematical techniques. At the same time, you're actually teaching students some novel math concepts like Kronecker products, tensor products, and matrices that most wouldn't learn until maybe a graduate program. So I think it can be done. It has to be done carefully, and you have to work with where the students are. But when I do this, I don't assume a background in calculus or in linear algebra in anything that I do.
Broccoli is not my favorite vegetable, as you know, so I'm okay of not broccoli first. So
So
let me.
it all sounds like, okay, well, so you have to introduce these concepts somewhere in the middle school, okay, well, so do I get this right, okay, well, so because see, we are kind of afraid to go and teach in high school quantum mechanics, but you're exactly right. Okay, well, so some of these concepts of quantum mechanics, okay, well, so don't have to be, okay, well, so on solution of Schrödinger's equation. All right, okay, well, so and see those concepts, okay, well, so the earlier we put those concepts in the heads of students, the easier it is for digesting them later. So do you think that we have a chance with our local schools that they will introduce the
I think the
foundations
kids,
of quantum mechanics?
I think the kids can do it. I think it's the school administrators you have to convince.
I'd agree with that. I will add to that too. Just another quote from Einstein. You know, it's a miracle that anybody goes through a formal education with any form of creativity. It's something we have to get back to foster the creative spirit of inquiry and questioning the world. It's going to be hard for them to question the fabric of the universe if we don't get them into a place where they can explore and get that passion about the concepts of what it can do, not just dig directly into the mechanics.
Very good.
Can I add something?
Of course, please.
I think Dr. Zhou's class would be the best one as an example, because I feel like you engage the student, right? Even to brownie, that's the only part I do not agree about the Girl Scout cookie, okay? But I think that's the most important thing, to be the best leader, to say, okay, quantum is the future and everybody follow me. You got to show people what is the end of the tunnel, have a peep of it, right? So the dessert, right? So you're gonna say, okay, there are 8 hours a day, but quantum can help you optimize your workflow so that you will save 2 hours to have fun, right? You gonna do it, right? Okay, Canadian has 75 large transactions, and then if you reorder it, it's like using travel and sales problem, you can save $500 million a day. Would you like that? Sure. And let's look into what it is, right?
That's the
So we
dessert
need-
part of it.
Yeah. So all you have to do is just run the annealing for 200 times, and each time pay $20 cloud, and $4,000 a day, you save 500 million. So you will try it, right? Because then you have the incentive. So engaging and incentivize and give a peep of the end of tunnel, I think that helps.
Great. Any other thought before we move on to the next question? I think this is
I think, I've had the opportunity to go to Mexico to teach quantum computing to seniors in high school and freshmen in college. And quantum computing, I think, we're kind of lucky in that a lot of the operations that you need to learn for linear algebra is mostly rotation, and so the block sphere is a great sandbox for students to start already playing with some basic rules of quantum mechanics without having to fully do Lagrangians or crazy things. So I think as quantum computing hardware becomes available for cloud access, people can start already even running some basic things like gravity oscillations or some basic concepts of quantum mechanics on quantum computers. But I think that, in terms of what quantum mechanics can give, I think that the kids can learn, and I also agree with that statement. And I think that in my experience, whenever the answers get crazy in quantum mechanics, is really the classical that acts as a spotlight for you to kind of ground yourself and be like, hey, maybe I'm doing something wrong.
maybe you are thinking too classically.
Exactly, yeah,
That's
yeah.
what you is that you're thinking too classically.
Yeah, so.
Great, that's great. Yeah, I do want to invite the next question. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to ask the panel maybe to step away from the comfort zone of teaching quantum mechanics and maybe address a broader topic. I think that part of our remit here at the Texas Quantum Summit is really to try to understand how to make an economic impact with where we're at in quantum right now. And it's a local question. And if you are a student of the history of technology and you look at places where a technology took off, Silicon Valley, right, for microelectronics, or Rochester, New York for optics, or Texas for aerospace. There's a communal learning, and when we interpret the word workforce, it's not just about putting facts in people's heads, but there is a community and a workforce that has to come up together. Oftentimes, the hallmarks of that are that people move between organizations and they spread knowledge and information and even culture between those organizations. Is there a way that Texas can create that kind of miracle? Starting here at the Texas Quantum Summit, and what are the pieces that you have to put in place to make that happen?
Somebody must have
Somebody want to take the first bite at it?
I'll say a joke to give you all a minute to think about a serious answer. Local, you said local. Yeah, as our local political leader has told us this morning, fortune favors prepared minds, right? Coming from a neurosurgeon, that sounded a little bit creepy, but there is truth to it, right? So we need to keep our minds open and keep them prepared.
Yeah, let me buy more time for you guys to think. I just want to recite. It's not my idea. I want to recite. We heard from earlier speeches from the panels. Our panelists, but also our representatives, our senator said, right? The quantum takes a village. It's not just one single discipline. It's a multidisciplinary approach. You referenced the Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley is not because just Stanford. Yeah, Silicon Valley is Silicon Valley. Being able to retain that talent pool is because the people can just walk next door and find what they need, right? I think that's what you said. Is that communal feeling, right? And I think this is I should say it's an ecosystem we want to create locally, in your word, but also statewide. And we already have the large tech hubs within the state of Texas, right? I don't have to name it. I'm new to Texas, but I already learned there are tech hubs. The question to us is how we can work together, support or influence the legislative process, and also working at the university with the community to continue strengthening, from nodes. We should establish nodes, but also how can we make connection between the nodes and making the nodes broader. At some point, two nodes becomes one. That's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the process we need to all think together. It's not just one university, one company. It's us together, including the government helping us as well. Now, buy more time. Go ahead, please.
I'll give the bland, generic, but actually correct answer to this, which is not very different from what Lynn has already described. I mean, you need to have a broadened education program so people are brought up understanding, appreciating what quantum does, what it is. And they also need to look around them and see that there's an industry that they could actually get a job in. So the industry needs to be there. And for those pieces, of course, you need academia. So it does have to bootstrap, but kids are not going to go into an industry where there's no future. So it's all got to kind of grow together. And with any sort of bootstrapping effort, you need something to kickstart it. Hopefully this summit is something that can kickstart that.
And for the record, industry is here. We need workforce development. That's how we make things happen. Thank you for these thoughtful responses.
I would also agree with that, and I think the state has done its job. I think 4751 was a launching point, but I don't think we can expect the Fed or the state to carry this. I would agree with the grassroots and bootstraps approach. But when I speak to superintendents of small schools about quantum, I don't even have to continue that statement, because once I say the word quantum, they immediately tune out. They don't understand what it is or how it's going to affect their kids. And I would agree that the way to really impact that is for people to understand there's jobs here. How's it going to affect our area? How's it going to affect our kids? And where are they going to see growth in their communities, their students? And I think that's part of that marketing discussion. Having conversations with the local universities, having conversations with local government, and having forums that You're not afraid to maybe have different types of forums. Maybe you're not discussing linear algebra in front of your community, but you are discussing the impact of quantum as a whole, I guess.
Something that I'd like to add is that I think the aerospace example here in Texas is already, historically, I think a great analogy for where we're at. I think quantum in general, let it be devices, computers, materials, having a rallying cry of this is what we're doing. It might be that it's all of the above, right? Everything here. Really brings people together. And I think that Texas is a big state, you know, I come from Brownsville. There's a big manufacturing plants down there. We got, you know, software all over the place, industry all over the place. I don't have to say it here, but I think that it's a great opportunity to, using quantum, I think aerospace is a great example to, one, start defining new jobs, right? We have people like quantum operators that need to maintain quantum computers wherever they're deployed. We need system engineers that understand how to bridge the gap between software and hardware. We need quantum physicists, but also, you know, lawyers that need to draft what is a quantum computer, what are the export controls around that. You know, there's a very big impact for, I think quantum is going to start growing outside of what we typically think of in terms of physics. And I think Texas, if there's a common rallying cry of what we're building, I think Texas will be a great place to do it.
Thank you, thank you. So I realize we are one of the panels between you and the airport. So I do want to keep us on time. We have about 10 minutes left, so maybe 2 questions. I think between that gentleman, Phil, and you.
I think the lady was waiting.
Oh, and
before.
Beth. Which one? I lose track of which one.
my time to.
All right, okay. Beth, please go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to make a couple comments. I'm Beth Thacker. I'm from Texas Tech University. I do physics education research, so I study how students learn physics within a physics department, right? And physics education research is something that is a group of people that should be here, actually. And some of you have physics education researchers maybe in your departments. But why is this relevant? I want to address some of the workforce issues because we're the people who are studying it. We're not saying what is workforce, what do we need, blah, blah, blah. The most significant research that I know on it is out of the University of Colorado. There's a 2020 paper which started it. They've had a lot of papers since then. They interview people in industry. They do surveys of people in industry and in the academia. And they're writing about, from all the interviews, from all the research that they've done, what's needed in the workforce and what academia can do. So this research has been done and those papers are out there. So it's not all, what do you think? I think this, what this, because I get irritated when I hear all this. People are studying it, and so you can learn about it, the research that's been done. And I don't remember exactly the authors of those papers right now, but if you email me, I can put you in touch and get you that. Okay, so that said, I'm going to agree with Brian about this. I'm changing the subject, about what's needed to teach quantum computing. I am teaching a quantum computing course. I'm teaching it as an upper level elective. I'm not requiring anything, okay? I'm not requiring quantum and I'm not requiring linear algebra. I tell them that it would be beneficial if you've seen it, but you don't need it because you can teach it within the course. And so I'm going to disagree with a lot of people. You don't need that much quantum to get started in quantum computing. You need the 2-level spin systems. You need the first 2 chapters, first chapter and a half of McIntyre, which is a spin to first X. That's it. And you can do this not at a senior level, you can do it at a freshman level, and you can do it in high school. And so you don't need that much quantum to get started. You can learn the rest of quantum later if you want it, but to get started in quantum computing, you need to know about 2-level spin systems. You don't need that much linear algebra. You need to know matrix multiplication. And if you don't, I can teach you in a day. I can teach you to do this and this and this to get the answer. It's not a deep understanding of linear algebra, but it will get you started, okay? So we don't need that much, and we can do it at all different levels. I don't know if anyone from UT Arlington is here, but they started Quantum for All, 5, 6, 7 years ago with NSF funding. I have presently NSF funding to research the students in my class, their understanding, and we're videotaping them on these mini tutorials that we're developing to see how they're understanding and to help us develop better mini tutorials. And so you can do this kind of research, and there are not just PER, physics education, there are CS education, engineering education, all of math education research, lots of us out there. It comes under the umbrella of DBER, which is discipline-based education research. And we're the ones who are going in and researching all this so that it's not just, I think this, but let's find out. Let's see what the students think. Let's videotape them. Let's see what they're doing. Let's see how they're thinking. Let's make it more formal. So I'm just saying that's happening. And so
Thank you.
those are just comments.
Beth, thank you.
I could
Yep.
take that. Thank you, Beth, for those comments. And yeah, I'm familiar with, I believe it's Heather Ledowski at Colorado's who's doing that work. I've been running a 2-day conference as part of IEEE Quantum Week the past several years, focused on quantum education, with a number of researchers who are struggling with this question of how to teach quantum. And I'll argue that teaching quantum is different and more challenging than teaching physics, teaching classical physics and some of the other disciplines we have. We as researchers don't really even understand quantum mechanics, and so we struggle to explain what quantum computing, quantum mechanics is. And right now, I would say in the field, it's kind of the Wild West in terms of what approach works. There are approaches that are very abstract, where you just talk about pictures and little spiders and boxes, and that's quantum computing, down to, here's an actual transmon qubit, and this is how it works, or linear algebra, and here's what a block sphere is. I think it's still very much an open research question, and I am sure that the field could learn from and benefit greatly from the research that's already been done in physics education. But I think that it also needs to address some of the unique challenges that quantum has. And we're not quite there yet, so I'm looking forward to that field developing.
Great, thank you. I
That's
would like
what
to
I'm
move
doing,
on.
But I want to
Beth, if I could.
what he's doing is great too, those conferences.
Thank you, Beth. That gentleman, please.
Hello, my name is Sam. I'm a recent grad from Texas A&M. I have a bachelor's in electrical engineering, and in 2023 I helped found Quant A&M, which is a quantum computing club on campus. We've reached over 300 people on our online forum, and we have maybe 100 people on our newsletter right now. So a lot of undergrads are interested in this field. However, there's a choke point. There's one quantum computing class on campus, and there are maybe 3 or 4 faculty who are accepting students in this field. So I'm curious if y'all have any quick recommendations before the panel ends for undergrads who are interested in quantum, but they want to get a career perhaps coming out of their bachelor's, which I've heard is possible. I'm still trying to see if that is in my current situation. But if you have any suggestions for undergrads who want to get a career in quantum, but perhaps don't have access to maybe the coursework they need, be it prerequisites or getting a PhD immediately out of their bachelor's. So thank you again for your panel.
Let me suggest, okay. My collaborator, Dr. Ambo Travers at the Oak Ridge National Lab, he sent out a newsletter every Sunday. He actually did it himself. I was saying I want to help him. So in that particular newsletter, I would like you to subscribe. So every week you will get the latest news of what's happening and all the due dates for proposal and conferences, and then all the job listing. So you go through all the job listings and you see what companies are looking for, and then you get prepared for that. And I think that is very important. And I applaud you to do something like that. That's a good example that how we can ignite the quantum fever. But I would like to say one thing is quantum is not a luxury, it's not a hobby, it's actually necessary. Because in supercomputer, we are hitting the end of silicon, okay? We are asking 90 more gigawatts. Okay, right now, every day when I turn on the news, there's a tornado somewhere. It's very scary that we need so much more power. Right now, we are taking 20% of all energy in computing, and now there was one OpenAI company. Now every company want to do AI. So I'm very afraid, okay? So I think quantum is our only hope to have small system, to have just 15 kilowatt, just 3 by 3 size instead of football size and tennis court size of data center, okay? So quantum is not a luxury. We really, and I know that you guys think it's important, that's why you are here, and you're gonna be the leader. And Texas is actually also the driving force of the entire world. We got the first microchip, right? And the reason we're speaking English today is because Texas oil in World War II, right? And that's the reason I'm here today, because I'm a baby boomer, right? Otherwise, my dad will come home from the war. So we need to really think about, it's not a luxury, and really need to take a responsibility to carry this and then help the world and get over all this, the data problem, the AI energy hunger, and all those kind of things. So quantum is our solution, and we need to look into it.
So Dr. Shih, would you be able to share that resource, that newsletter you mentioned with the student?
Yes, it's Oak Ridge National Lab Quantum Computer Institute newsletter. And so you can, look into Dr. Travis Umble. Yeah, I'm very lucky to work with all these leaders in the world. Yeah.
Thank you. So if I could, so I know we're gonna come down to the end of the panel. So I want to bring a surprise. I have to say, I'm completely transparent. This is not prepared. None of you are prepared for this. So I'm gonna have a rapid fire round. Okay, one question, one sentence response. No more one sentence, just one sentence response, rapid fire round. I was inspired actually by your comment about AI, right? We know that AI is starting augmenting our human labor. Programmers using AI to do programming, and robotics working on assembly lines, and also even teaching, right? Our professors creating course content using AI, and our students using AI to answer the questions. Our professor using AI to grade, right? To grade the exam. So we start seeing AI becomes more getting into replacing the human labor. And we know based on the conversations we had in this conference, quantum is going to put AI on steroid. So what is the future of humanity? What are we going to be doing 15 years down the road? One sentence. Okay, start from you.
We have no friggin' idea.
Okay,
That's
no
the honest
freaking idea.
answer.
That's the answer. You, Alex.
Yeah, well, our kids will be resting at home, and computers will be teaching computers and taking tests and grading tests.
All right, okay. No more linear algebra, I suppose, at that point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying.
One sentence, right? Always one sentence.
Yeah, I'm computing the X prize and trying to use quantum to generate data and save energy.
Okay.
Let's say jobs are not going to technology is not going to replace people's jobs. It's people who don't understand how to use the technology that will replace their jobs.
All right, you, Sergio.
I think we'll be training agents to run calculations for us in quantum computers.
All right, okay, with this, we're going to conclude the panel. Thank you all.